The rain was relentless, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For weeks, maybe months, a knot of unease had been tightening in my gut. Elara, my wife of 15 years, had become distant. We lived in Seattle, a city known for its moody weather, but her moodiness felt different, colder. I am Quentin, 46, and I work as a software engineer. I've always been a logical, analytical person, but logic seemed to fail me when it came to Elara. I loved her deeply, blindly perhaps, and I desperately wanted to believe everything was all right. It started subtly. Late nights at the office, which she attributed to a new project at her marketing firm. Business trips that seemed to stretch longer than usual. Phone calls taken in hushed tones on the back porch, her voice dropping to a near whisper when I approached. I tried to brush it off. She's working hard, I told myself. She's stressed. But the excuses were wearing thin, even to me. The first real crack in the facade appeared a few weeks ago. I was doing laundry, a task I often took on to help ease Elara's workload. In the pocket of her favorite coat, I found a receipt. A small, innocuous piece of paper, but it sent a jolt of ice through my veins. It was from a restaurant, a romantic Italian place downtown, dated for a night Elara had supposedly been working late. The restaurant was called Bella Luna. I remember thinking how perfect that name was for a place where secrets were kept. I confronted her about it, of course. She stammered, her eyes darting around the room. "Oh, that," she said, her voice strained. "That was a team dinner. We went there to celebrate closing a big deal." I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. I pressed her for details, asking about her colleagues who had been there. She stumbled over names, couldn't quite recall the specifics of the big deal they had closed. The more she talked, the more my suspicion grew. I didn't say anything more that night, but the seed of doubt had been planted and it was beginning to sprout. I started paying closer attention to her behavior. I checked her phone when she was in the shower, a shameful act I never thought I was capable of. I found nothing, or at least nothing obvious. Her messages were clean, her call history unremarkable. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. Then came the perfume. Elara had always worn the same scent, a light floral fragrance that I adored. But lately I had detected a different aroma clinging to her clothes, a musky, almost masculine scent that was definitely not hers. I asked her about it, and she dismissed it as a new hand lotion she had been trying. But again, her explanation felt hollow, unconvincing. I started having trouble sleeping. I would lie awake at night, listening to Elara's rhythmic breathing beside me, my mind racing with questions and anxieties. I tried to talk to her about my feelings, about the distance that had grown between us, but she would always deflect, saying I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid. "You're just stressed about work, Quentin," she would say, her voice laced with a hint of exasperation. "You need to relax." But how could I relax when I felt like my entire world was slowly crumbling around me? I decided I needed to know the truth, one way or another. I couldn't live with the uncertainty any longer. I did something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Silas, a gruff, middle-aged man with a world-weary expression. I met him in a dimly lit bar downtown, feeling like I was in some kind of seedy movie. I told him my suspicions, handed over a photo of Elara, and gave him her schedule. "Find out what she's up to," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to know the truth." The next few days were agonizing. I waited for Silas's call, my anxiety building with each passing hour. I tried to act normal around Elara, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. I felt like I was living a lie, pretending that everything was fine when I was slowly being eaten alive from the inside. Finally, the call came. It was late in the evening and I was sitting alone in the living room staring blankly at the television. Silas's voice was curt, professional. "I have something for you," he said. "Can you meet me tomorrow morning?" I met him at a coffee shop near my office. He handed me a thick envelope, his expression grim. "I'm sorry, Mr. Quentin," he said, "but it's not good." I opened the envelope, my hands trembling. Inside were photos. Photos of Elara laughing, holding hands with another man. Photos of them kissing, entering a hotel together. Photos that shattered my world into a million pieces. The man in the photos was a guy named Theron, a colleague of hers from work. I recognized him from a company party we had attended last year. He was tall, handsome, with a slick, arrogant demeanor that I had instantly disliked. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. It was all true. Everything I had feared, everything I had tried to deny was real. Elara was cheating on me. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to destroy something, anything, but I was frozen, paralyzed by the shock and the pain. I thanked Silas, paid him his fee, and walked out of the coffee shop, feeling like a ghost. I drove home in a daze, my mind reeling. I couldn't even begin to process what I had just learned. When I got home, Elara was there, waiting for me. She greeted me with a smile, asking about my day. I stared at her, my heart aching with a mixture of anger and betrayal. How could she be so normal, so nonchalant when she was living a lie? I couldn't hold it in any longer. "I know," I said, my voice trembling. "I know about Theron, I know about everything." Her face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. How did you find out?" she finally stammered. "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that you betrayed me. You lied to me, you broke my heart." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Quentin, I can explain," she said. "There's nothing to explain," I replied, my voice rising. "I saw the photos, Elara, I saw you with him, there's no denying it." She started to cry, begging me to forgive her. She said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, but I didn't believe her. How could I? The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. "I don't understand why you did this," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "I loved you, I gave you everything. What more did you want?" She didn't have an answer. She just kept crying, repeating that she was sorry, that she loved me. But her words were empty, meaningless. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built my life with, was a stranger. I told her to leave. I couldn't bear to look at her any longer. "Get out, Elara," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Just get out." She packed a bag, her sobs echoing through the house. As she walked out the door, she turned to me one last time, her eyes filled with desperation. "Please, Quentin," she said, "don't do this. We can work through this. We can fix this. It's too late, Elara," I said. "It's over." And with that, she was gone. I stood there, alone in the empty house, the silence deafening. My world had been turned upside down, my heart ripped out. I didn't know what to do, where to go, or how to even begin to pick up the pieces. The next few weeks were a blur. I barely ate, barely slept. I went through the motions at work, but I was just a shell of my former self. I filed for divorce, the papers a stark reminder of the failure of my marriage. Elara tried to contact me, to apologize, to plead for another chance, but I refused to speak to her. I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forget what she had done. I started seeing a therapist, trying to make sense of the pain and the anger that consumed me. She helped me to understand that what Elara had done was not my fault, that I was not to blame for her betrayal. It was a long, slow process, but I gradually began to heal. I started exercising, eating healthy, and spending time with friends and family. I rediscovered hobbies that I had neglected during my marriage. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life piece by piece, but the anger still lingered, a dark undercurrent beneath the surface. I couldn't shake the feeling that Elara had gotten away with it, that she hadn't suffered enough for the pain she had caused me. Theron, too, seemed to be living his life without consequence. I saw them together occasionally, laughing, holding hands, oblivious to the devastation they had left in their wake. That's when I decided that I needed to do something, that I couldn't just let them go on with their lives as if nothing had happened. I started plotting my revenge. It wasn't going to be violent or destructive. I'm not that kind of person, but it was going to be subtle, calculated, and devastatingly effective. My first step was to gather information. I used my skills as a software engineer to hack into Elara's email account and Theron's social media profiles. I wanted to know everything about their lives, their habits, their weaknesses. What I discovered was even more shocking than I had imagined. Theron was married. He had a wife and 2 young children. He had been leading a double life, pretending to be a devoted husband and father while carrying on an affair with Elara. I felt a surge of satisfaction. This was even better than I had hoped. I knew exactly what I had to do. I anonymously sent Theron's wife, Ingrid, an email with all the evidence of his affair with Elara. I included the photos, the emails, the text messages, everything. I made sure she knew exactly what he had been up to. I sat back and waited for the fireworks to begin. It didn't take long. A few days later, I received a message from Ingrid. It was short but powerful. "Thank you," she wrote. "You have opened my eyes." I later learned that Ingrid had confronted Theron and he had denied everything at first. But when she showed him the evidence, he had no choice but to confess. She kicked him out of the house and filed for divorce. His life was in ruins. He lost his wife, his children, and his reputation. He was a pariah at work, ostracized by his colleagues. Elara, too, suffered the consequences of her actions. When word of the affair spread, she was fired from her job. Her friends and family turned their backs on her. She was alone, isolated, and miserable. I watched it all unfold from a distance, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. They had both gotten what they deserved. They had hurt me deeply, and now they were paying the price. But as I watched their lives crumble, I realized that revenge wasn't as satisfying as I had thought it would be. It didn't bring me happiness or peace or closure. It just left me feeling empty and a little bit ashamed. I had sunk to their level, engaging in petty, vindictive behavior that was beneath me. I decided that it was time to move on, to let go of the anger and the resentment that had consumed me for so long. I focused on my own healing, on building a new life for myself. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but eventually I met someone special. Her name was Genevieve, and she was everything that Elara wasn't. Honest, kind, compassionate, and loving. She helped me to trust again, to open my heart to the possibility of love. With Genevieve, I found the happiness that had eluded me for so long. We got married a year later, in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I stood at the altar, looking into Genevieve's eyes, I knew that I had finally found my true soulmate. The past was behind me, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. Elara and Theron eventually faded from my life. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they had tried to make a go of their relationship, but it hadn't worked out. They had broken up, bitter and resentful, blaming each other for their misfortunes. I didn't feel any satisfaction in their misery. I just felt a sense of pity. They had made their choices, and they had to live with the consequences. As for me, I had learned a valuable lesson. That revenge is a dish best left uneaten, and that true happiness comes from forgiveness, acceptance, and love. I moved on with my life, grateful for the second chance I had been given, and determined to make the most of it. I never spoke to Elara again, and I never regretted it. She was a chapter in my life that was best left closed. I focused on my present and my future, on the love and happiness that I had found with Genevieve. And in the end, that was all that mattered.